Today we're going to be unboxing the boy Lammily doll. To give a little bit of background, this is the third doll made by the Lammily company. Like all of the other dolls that this company has made, this has been crowdfunded. The crowdfunding campaign took place in March of 2016. Having been one of the backers, I received my doll about a week before Christmas. This guy, like the other Lammily dolls, is available for purchase on the official website, which I will link below. So the first thing that comes to my mind is that this box is glaringly different from the other two dolls' boxes, as you can see. Though the artwork still represents the hobbies and interests of the doll, this time an animal rescuer as voted on by the doll community. Now let's turn him over and look at the back of the box. So, if you look towards the bottom, you can see all three of the Lammily dolls standing together, but for some reason, the animal rescuer doll is a computer-generated image. This is the image that was given to us during the crowdfunding campaign, showing what the doll was supposed to have looked like. I'm not quite sure what happened between this image and what we were actually given. Taking central focus of the back packaging are a list of names and photos of dedicated Lammily fans. Now these were perks as part of the original crowdfunding campaign, and they were a bit up there, so I'm not on there. Up at the top we have a small bit of text about the 2-year history of Lammily and how this doll came to be. As we flip over to the side panel, we see a portrait of the animal rescuer, and we see a small snippet about him and what he does. Getting the doll out of the packaging is fairly simple. There are 2 little twisty ties, and that's it. There's no little plastic tags that are stuck into his head that you have to trim off without decapitating your doll. It's what I like about this packaging. It's simple. And so now we've got the background that the doll comes in. Still very artistically done. So even though this box is different and that it's got a cellophane wrapper, it's still got a lot of artistic detail to it, and I appreciate that. So let's take a look at the story. Now, the basic story is that he rescues this kitten from almost getting run over by a little neighbor girl. And he feeds the kitten, and he raises the kitten, and he discovers that the kitten is deaf, because the kitten's non-responsive to any sounds. And then he finds other neighbors who also have animals who have various disabilities, and so that's how he becomes the animal rescuer. Right, so let's take a look at this doll. Even though he doesn't look exactly like his computer-generated image, he's not a bad-looking doll. He is wearing a plaid t-shirt and blue jean shorts. Of course, like the other 2 Lammily dolls, when he goes to sit and he's wearing pants, he's going to have the same bit of excess fabric kind of hanging off the back. So I'm not a big fan of the hairline on this doll. That's like my one big issue. So the hair does not seem like it's been rooted as thickly as the other Lammily dolls. In fact, if I flip his hair up, you can see kind of like a bald spot in the back. Now, if they had intentionally put a bald spot, like they were trying to make it look like he had male pattern baldness, because the idea behind these dolls is average is beautiful. So if it were something that they had done on purpose and like purposefully had a bald spot, which is not what this looks like, if they were trying for that, I would understand. But that's not what this looks like. This just looks like they sparsely rooted the hair, which with the hair being shorter, it gives a little less, it gives fewer options for style. I'll have to play around with this. So I'm gonna go ahead and take his clothes off. Oh my god, dolly nudity! Yeah, so we can see what he looks like, since this is the male version of the average body style that Lammily is known for. As you can see, he does not have a 6-pack. In fact, neither do most of the guys that I've ever met, so this is realistic. I'm gonna go ahead and take his pants off. So his joints are pretty much the same as the other 2 Lammily dolls. He still sits the same way the other 2 dolls sit, although it's more normal for guys to sit like that. What's the term? Man-spreading. His legs and arms move the same way. You've got the 3 clicky joints. Although the joints are a bit hard to click at first, you're gonna have to work with those a little bit. So here are the animal rescuer and travel Lammily dolls together. So you can see that he is a little bit taller than she is, and I don't know if you can tell from the camera that I have, but her skin tone's actually just a slight bit darker than his. Another thing I would like to point out is that his hands and feet are both different from hers. They're shinier. They're shinier than hers, and they're shinier than the rest of his body. It's a different type of plastic being used. And even though it's shiny, it does allow for a little bit more detail. The cuts and grooves are deeper. The fingernail outlines are more profound. His feet are also bigger than hers, as you can tell by the differences in shoe size. So here are the new Lammily doll and a Ken doll next to each other so you can see the difference. He's a little shorter, he's a little wider, he doesn't have the six-pack. He also doesn't have the plastic molded on hair that this Ken doll does. Now, some of the Ken dolls do have rooted hair, like this one right here, and his hair is short, but you notice how it's thickly rooted. I mean, look at this. There aren't very many gaps as I flip my finger through his hair. There's maybe this one little spot right there. So this is definitely an area where I think Lammily Company could improve with their male doll. Now, just for curiosity's sake, I switched the outfits between the Traveler Lammily and the male Lammily doll, which in my mind, I see these dolls as like brother and sister, so I can see them like maybe stealing each other's clothes occasionally. Now, his shorts do fit her, but they're much tighter because she's fuller in the back, but the shirt fits just fine. Putting him into one of her outfits, it looks like he's just wearing skinny jeans. They're maybe a little bit loose in the back. The shirt fits just fine. It's maybe a little bit more snug, but otherwise this looks okay, I think. He doesn't have nearly as much junk in the trunk as she does, so when he sits in her pants, the back doesn't pop out nearly as much. I'm not a big fan of the visible stitching. I think they should have used the same color as the denim for the back stitching rather than trying to make it show. Otherwise, I think these work fine, and I think you could easily switch clothes between the different Lammily dolls, keeping in mind that there are going to be some slight differences in fit. Changed his outfit. You like it? While there are certainly improvements that could be made and should be made on future dolls, I appreciate the fact that there is now a male doll with more of an average build. Just as we place all of these standards on girls and women, we also place standards on boys and men. Guys are not immune to body image issues, and I feel that it's just as important for them to know that they don't have to fit a particular mold to be handsome. Likewise, physical strength doesn't always look like the giant muscles in superheroes and G.I. Joes. Not to mention that while strength and power are fine attributes, they're not the sum of human experience. Also, I'm just happy to have another male doll at this scale. Generally, unless you pay a lot more money for higher end, there aren't very many options. There are only a few different Ken dolls, and I've seen some 1/6 scale characters from Avengers and Star Wars in the toy store, but they have virtually no articulation. May as well be statues. It wasn't long after the Traveler Lammily was released that the community started expressing desire for a male doll. This company being relatively new, only 2 years old, not very big, and with a CEO that essentially had to learn the toy business, dude was a graphic designer before that original average Barbie photo went viral. I'm a bit more forgiving than I would be for a bigger company like Mattel that churns out dozens of dolls, outfits, accessories, etc. per year. So what if they only produce a couple of dolls per year? Until they get bigger, it's a thing we're going to have to accept. It costs money to make these molds and produce these dolls. I think part of what happened is that the doll was rushed. I mean, crowdfunding campaign in March, then take that financing to start working on molds to produce dolls in time for Christmas 8 to 9 months later. Not to forget having to advertise and fit press releases in there. I know it seems like a long chunk of time, and I honestly have no idea what all is involved, or how long it takes, or how many people he has in his employ. Maybe I'm being too easy. I don't know. Regardless, I would have been happy to wait a little bit longer if it meant having a doll that looked a little bit more like what was promoted. All of that said, I hope Lammily Company takes this as constructive criticism. I am not downing this doll at all. If I had to go back and do it all over again, I would still buy the doll with all of the issues I've mentioned the same. And I look forward to new dolls and new improvements. Keep up the good work.